Welcome to the wonderful world of dance, bringing you exclusive interviews with top dancers and choreographers and reviews of the world's best companies across the globe. You can find lots more on our website at thewonderfulworldofdance.com.
Hi, this is Savannah Saunders from The Wonderful World of Dance, and today I'm honoured to introduce the acclaimed award-winning choreographer Annabelle Lopez Ochoa, whose prolific career has seen her create works for more than 60 companies around the world, from the English National Ballet, the Dutch National, Finnish, Washington, Ballet Black, Dance Theatre of Harlem, and so many more. And this year Annabelle has been bestowed another award, receiving Jacob's Pillow Choreography Award to add to the long list of accolades. I have to say that I'm so excited to speak to the creator of one of my favourite pieces, the astounding Broken Wings, the life and work of Frida, created for the English National Ballet. Hi Annabelle, thank you so much for joining me.
Hi Savannah.
So here we are, we're in my apartment here today, so it's so lovely to have you over from Amsterdam.
Yes.
Here in London, which is fantastic. So, but with such a huge, extensive body of work and award-winning career that you've got, I almost don't know where to start. Because there's so much that we could cover. So I was thinking, let's start at the beginning.
Yes.
You trained with the Royal Ballet of Antwerp in Belgium. When did your love of dance first start?
It didn't start before the age of 8 because between my 6th and 8th year, I think I had a bit of gender dysmorphia. So I was a tomboy and I wanted to be a boy and I behaved like a boy and I dressed like a boy until I almost succeeded to be believed to be a boy. And so my mother said, and now it's over, I have a daughter and you're going to behave like one, so I'm sending you to ballet. And so, you know, a few months later, there I was in these ballet classes that I hated because we were doing all these tiny little exercises that I didn't see the point. And then in these 2 years that I did those exercises once a week, we were preparing a performance. And the day that I stood on stage, I finally understood why we're doing all these small exercises, actually to express something on stage. And I looked at the older students and, you know, I loved that they were so free technically to express even more than I could at 10 years old. So that's when I got hooked after 2 years being forced to go to ballet to become a girl. I just got hooked to the way that, to the fact that you can express something without words.
And was it at that moment or was it over time where you decided you really wanted to be a professional dancer?
No, I didn't even think that that was, a profession. I wanted to be either an engineer or a doctor. But, you know, unfortunately, the situation at home wasn't the best between my parents. They were fighting a lot. There was a lot of tension. And one day, that same teacher that, you know, taught me my first pliés, she came and talked to my parents and said, Annabelle has talents. And there is an audition for the professional ballet school. Would you be interested? So they asked me, and I didn't think of becoming a professional dancer. I was only thinking and focusing on the fact that I would have to go to boarding school and I could escape the situation at home. So still at the age of 10, I did not decide to become a professional dancer. It came much later, that conscious decision.
And when you made that decision, in terms of entering, you know, leaving your professional training and going into your company life as a dancer, what was that transition like for you when you were starting out in your career?
I think that the conscious decision that to become a dancer is actually a real profession and it's a lifestyle was around, I was 16 years old. But I discovered choreography way before, when I was 11, and I remember, you know, wishing in silence that if I could do that the rest of my life, I would be really the happiest person on earth. At the time, of course, I didn't know that it was a profession that you could actually survive from it. I don't think that I was trained as a classical ballet dancer, but I really could not picture myself in a tutu and be selling an audience that I was a princess and that I was elegant, because I think that tomboy still now is ingrained in me. So it was very clear in those last 2 years of my education that I would go into a contemporary dance career, which I did at the age of 18. I went to Germany to 2 dance theater companies, and then when I was 20 I joined JazzX, which is a contemporary jazz company in The Hague, and they folded after 3 years, so I had to find another work, and then I joined the Scapino Ballet for 8 years.
And this journey from classical training into contemporary, and you talk about really even at the early stages of being 11, which is quite remarkable to be thinking about, wow, I love creating work so early on. What was it that even as a young child made you think actually creating work was something that was intriguing to you? What was it about?
I think the pure fact of when you're in the studio for 1 hour creating a new reality, your focus is so high. I always say it goes into your third eye. It's almost like a meditation. Time stops. It's the experience of that 1 hour felt like 5 minutes until that teacher came back and wanted to see all that we had created. And I think that I got hooked and addicted to the fact that I could create new realities and tell stories, because I've always had a penchant towards narrative, although I did a lot of abstract work in the beginning of my career. And that's that has followed me during my career as a dancer, that whenever there was a workshop for choreographers, I would enroll and say I want to be in it and make something, and I would always find a free studio. I would always find a free time in a really heavy schedule, and I was always ready ahead of time of the premiere of the workshop. And then one day, I remember I was 24, the workshop got cancelled, and so we had the big news. And the big news that the director came to bring us was that we were going on tour to Italy. So everybody was cheering, and I wasn't, because they canceled the workshop. And so the director noticed that, and he was like, what's going on with you? So he noticed that I was really passionate and dedicated and very organized about it. And so he said, well, I'll come and see your piece next week. And indeed, I was almost, like 1 minute from the end. And then he's the one that invited me, or, gave me my first commission for a classical, no, not a classical, a contemporary company, Scapino Ballet. And I'm very grateful that he opened that avenue of you can actually, it can be a profession and not something you do in your free time as a hobby.
And what did it feel like when you presented your first work? Do you remember those moments?
Oh yes, it's horrible. I think that I was very embarrassed, and I would sweat, and I felt that everybody else had a very trendy and hip choreography, and I wasn't hip at all. But weirdly enough, I got a very good review for it. And I think that, and that's what I tell young choreographers, don't try to follow the trend. Try to be as close as possible to you. And when you're 24, these are the stories you tell. When you're 44, you tell different kind of stories. So somewhere an audience can feel the honesty of a work. And I think that without knowing, I did that at the beginning of my career, and that's why I got picked out as somebody that had a voice and that had something to say, because I always had something to say. It couldn't be just, steps on, on music that I liked. It had to be about something. So yeah, it's still now, I mean, I'm a little bit less embarrassed when the curtain goes up and my work is being presented, but I always say that I experience a little death the moment the premiere happens, because for me, being a choreographer is being in the studio creating reality and putting all the elements of the dramaturgy, the lights, the costumes, the pace, and then once it's done, then my work is done. Then I'm not needed anymore, and yeah, it's empty. And yeah, it's always very sad for me. So I'm never really in a celebrating mood. I think I'm in much more celebrating mood when a piece gets re-presented later, because I feel like, oh, all that work and passion that I had, like with Broken Wings in 2016 got presented again in 2019, and that really fills my heart with happiness. But the premiere itself is never a good moment for a choreographer.
And as a choreographer, what elements have you taken from your performance career and working with other choreographers? Were there certain things that you felt worked for you and that you've adopted, or that really you've taken throughout your own career?
Yeah, for me, as a contemporary dancer, I've performed a lot of abstract work, and I've worked with a lot of choreographers that didn't tell me what their pieces were about, and that really frustrated me as a dancer. And that's why also I ended my career, because I was just like, well, if we're gonna sweat, let's go to the gym. Why are we sweating on a stage? So I needed intentions, and I was very infamous to invent my own stories with the abstract work. Like, there was a reason why I came on stage, there was a reason why I ran off stage, or I walked off stage, or I looked back. I just always had these stories in me, and that's what I use now. Even when I do a more abstract work, there has to be an intention and energy why you come on stage. And that's why I guess I got picked out to create my first narrative for the Scottish Ballet, which is A Streetcar Named Desire. And I feel very comfortable doing a narrative because it suits me. It's the way I thought as a dancer. So yeah, I always try to engage the intention and the want of a dancer on stage, because then it stays more alive. Otherwise, maybe the premiere is great, and by the third performance, they're just repeating themselves.
Mm. And how do you approach creating new work? Do you have a specific process that you go through every time, or is it different?
When it's an abstract work, so based on a theme, then the theme is there, and I try to find music that fits the theme. And then I usually know approximately what the costumes are going to look like, the colors. Are they in skirts? Are they pants? Is it gender unifying? And when it's a narrative, then I really sit down a year in advance and think. First, I do the research about the theme and the person that I'm going to talk about, and then I sit down and write every scene hand by hand, and hand by hand, like I have two hands, scene by scene. And I always work with a dramaturg. She's director Nancy Meckler, and so I tell her the concept of how I think this piece should be told, and then we go scene by scene and we build it together. And then of course that's on paper, and something that's written on paper is not dance. So as you go along in the studio, you do adapt and change your script. Once you have the script in a narrative, then the music comes second. So that's the difference between the abstract works and the narrative work.
And when you're in the studio with the dancers, do you have all of the steps set out in the scene by scene, or is it a co-creation type of environment? How does it work for you?
I'm still a very active choreographer, so I move and I show and I stand up all the time. And at some point in my career, I will have to work with improvisations and tasking, but I haven't done that, and I haven't yet figured out how to do it. Although sometimes my neck is stuck, or I'm still moving like that. No, I like to embody myself what the characters are. So I try to think if Diego Rivera, for example, is 20 years older than Frida Kahlo, and bigger and fatter, how would he move? How would I, even without the fat suit, how would he move? And I try to find a very specific language for each character, and therefore I feel that I have to move and show it. And so all the movements come from me, but I don't prepare in advance. I just improvise in front of them. Then I look at the choreography on the dancer, and then I mold them to their abilities and what looks good on them or not.
Do you think, given that you have created work for such a vast number of companies, and you've worked in theatre and film, do you have a particular choreographic language? Do you feel that there is a way of describing your work in a specific way?
I don't think so, because I love using and mixing styles. And I think it's a very difficult question to answer, but I did ask around to very close friends of mine, and they say that they can see my style in the transitions from scene to scene, or how the music goes from one to the other. They say that I never use blackouts, that's true. There's a certain logic and there's a breath that I have in all my work. So I'm very much aware of that. When I take the audience by the hand, I pull them, or I say, now it's a moment to reflect, now it's a moment to... So it seems that that is very visible in my work, but I don't have a particular style. You know, I just, because I'm an employee of the piece, so the piece tells me and dictates what I have to do. So for example, I just made a piece for the Washington Ballet called Delusional Beauty, and it was about a work by Salvador Dali, and there's this woman with a head of, you know, a flower that's walking very, like, you know, Buto-like, and I wanted all the other dancers around her to be butterflies passing through her garden. So I looked for butterflies movement. But, you know, Frida Kahlo does not have those movements. So in every piece, it's a different signature, I feel. And, you know, in the beginning of my career, I thought, oh, that's really a flaw. That's a weakness of mine, because I don't have a style. But then I thought, no, I want the audience to come and see my work. And when the curtain goes up, they're like, and what did she come up with now? And, you know, I want to surprise the audience and take them on a journey, and not say, well, you like that piece, well, you're going to get the same. I just don't do that. And it's a risk that you take, because, you know, when you, directors, they you know, commission you because they've seen a work and they're hoping that you do something like that work. So I've noticed that, and now, you know, I asked them, what is your company about? Can I see videos? Which piece did you see of mine? Why is it that you're inviting me? And so I can kind of feel where they want me to go. And, you know, it never feels like I'm, you know, being put into a box, because, you know, if you want a tutu ballet, I've got 2 of them. I would love to do a 3rd one. You know, there's always something to research. So, but, you know, most of the time they say, no, you're free. Just look at my dance and make something on them, for them. And that's what I do.
And where do you get your inspiration for all these diverse pieces, as you say, with such a wide repertoire, and, you know, always creating new work? Where do you get the inspiration?
Well, the inspiration always comes from my experience towards something that happens in society, but, you know, it can be a human interaction, it can be paintings. I love paintings, and I didn't realize that I loved painting so much, but I was meditating about it. Why is it that I use so many painters in my work? And I think that when I grew up, we had a painting of a Renoir, and it was the portrait of a young child looking out. And I would be observing it and thinking, I'm sure that at night, when we sleep, you just take a break and have a banana or something like that. I mean, you know, you have been painted for me to enjoy your frozen picture. And so when you have that imagination, that you think that the painting is actually real and it moves when you look away, every time you look away, that's basically what I'm doing with choreography. I'm imagining that those paintings are moving, and that there's a before, the moment that everybody knows, and then the moment after that painting is made. And, you know, so that's been a big part of my inspirations, are painters and painting. And yeah, the rest is really things that fascinates me, that makes me angry, that makes me laugh, that, you know, memories, childhood memories, a lot of them come back into my work. And you know, the fear for the ocean. I love water, but, you know, what happens underneath, so I made a whole piece about that. Yeah, so it's about a variety of subject, but I'm always related to it, what it is that I think, and, you know, the questions I have about that subject.
And I wanted to ask as well, in terms of Actually, I can't remember what I was going to ask.
Because you had probably
edit that out.
a different idea. Oh, that's good. I'm going to...
Yeah, I had two things that came to my mind, like right in that very, very moment. But I did want to ask, with this storytelling approach that you have, and it gives the impression that your mind is constantly, whirling up these wonderful stories in your head, and you're really considered and responding to the things that are going on around you, and what you see and what you feel and experience. But I'm just wondering how. I don't know quite how to put it. How does it feel for you to have this voice and to use this voice and to present this voice?
Yeah, well, I'm aware that I'm one of the very happy few female choreographers that is given quite many platforms, so smaller stage, bigger stage, and some big platforms where very talented choreographers would never get a chance at because of, I don't know, lots of different reasons. So I know that I'm very lucky. It's not because I'm the best, I'm just really lucky. So I'm aware, I've been, looking at what's happening in the classical ballet world, and I love stories, so obviously I go to their full length, and I love stories, that's why I go to the movies. I love stories, that's why I read books, and I feel that in the classical ballet world we should make a little bit more effort to come with new stories, and also the stories that are there and are very valid and gorgeous and beautiful, that's why they still exist, have a quite archaic way of putting the woman on stage, which I can't relate anymore to it. So I think it's very pretty, and I look at the technique and it's all looking gorgeous, and I paid money to escape and to look at gorgeous things. But I think it's time that we all, get our hands together and see how we can modernize those stories and modernize the relationship between men and women on stage, and the behavior that, it has changed. We're not anymore in court, and we're not peasants anymore. We're different kind of people. The classes are not as big as when those ballets were made. So yeah, I feel that I'm honored to have that platform, and I feel that it's my duty to use my voice to, instead of complaining about the fact that there's not new stories, just go out there and put them there. And there's a risk because you don't have a precedent, you don't know if it's going to work out. So I'm aware also that companies are taking the risk with me wanting to make a new ballet, a new story, and like I said to you before, sometimes the ballet isn't finished on the first viewing. It will need a couple of years to develop, to find the right pace, the right intentions, and the right choices. So yeah, I'm on a quest, I'm on a journey of hopefully, inspiring also younger choreographer to make a little bit more effort and come up with new stories. And there's so many beautiful stories out there. And I know that some stories are difficult to translate into dance, but also, it's up to find a way to combine a theater director or a dramaturg with a choreographer, and together these two forces can come up with ideas how we can tell those stories.
I think also with these new stories and having a female choreographer, seeing the role of the woman portrayed differently, but also I think the gaze as well to be different, rather than having the male gaze, looking at society, and to have a different perspective, I think is really important for audiences.
Yeah, I mean, in that sense, for me, Frida Kahlo, what she, what her work finally said many years after she died, is that it was a female artist putting the woman unprejudiced, unsalted, like we are, and our pains are, it's very honest and very direct, and there's no sugarcoating to it, and only we can know that. Men are very good at portraying them, but sometimes they romanticize what's going on, and they romanticize how young women are seducing or being seduced. Maybe our ways is a weapon. we use it in such a way to be really girly, but actually it's a weapon, because we see the effect. We are not that. It's, you know, I would love to set a different kind of woman on stage, and she might not be as elegant as the classical ballet world would want to. So it's finding that balance, because I love classical ballet, let's be clear about that. And you know, you need so much power and dedication to do that art form. So I want to honor it also in my work, and not say, well, from now on we shouldn't be, you know, classically trained, when it's not at all that. But finding, you know, this new aesthetical language with the aesthetic of ballet. Try to find that balance in that, and, you know, putting real people on stage and not fairy tale characters.
Yeah, it's interesting, because we're at a moment with social media particularly, and just the period in which we currently live in, where to me it appears that women are, in order to be beautiful, we are being asked to become very plastic looking. You know, this heavy makeup and all of this contouring, and we are starting to look like a Barbie doll in terms of what we're being asked to portray as a beauty.
Yeah, that's because so many pictures are being taken of you, and you can take yourself your picture, and of course women are never happy with how they look in the mirror, so we did it ourselves, unfortunately. And, you know, I think the fact that you can, you know, zoom in on every inch of your body, and that there's a filter, well, maybe that filter can be your makeup, but it's true that it becomes more and more. I mean, I see it in the Tube here in London. It becomes a mask, and in the Tube you see that it's a mask. You see the layers, and it's very unfortunate that, but I think it's not just society. We are also part of society, so we put that own pressure on us to be perfect. And, you know, at some time, because you see very young women doing that, and then when you get older, it's also, you know, the whole question of ageism, that after a certain age, you're not expected to be that, you know, relevant for society. You have to give your place to the young generation. So that makeup and the Botox and everything is there in place for that to not happen at the age that it happens, but maybe, you know, prolong that moment that people think that you're young, and, you know, would appreciate that you look young, I don't know, instead of, you know, appreciating the experience of life and the knowledge that you gain, you know, growing older.
In your work, you create very strong, very present characters in your work. How do you bring these characters to life? How do you pour so much into them?
Well, I worked a lot with actors, and I talked to them about all the characters that they're doing, that they were so believable. How do you do that? Is it technique? And then one of them said, no, I am a criminal, but I can be a woman too. You know, we all have it in us. So it's up to me to put myself into the shoes of a character, and to try to think, how would he react? And then share, you know, my observations with the dancers, and make him understand that he should not copy me, but he should find a way of my thinking. So I'm now doing this movement, and that means that, you know, I'm measuring something, because, you know, I'm Diego Rivera. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm talking about Frida, because I'm working on it right now. But, you know, he has this movement, and for me it's you know, he's measuring where the head will be or something like that. So if I say that out loud, he'll take that thought and not just copy the movement. So therefore they become more alive, and they remain alive on stage, as opposed to having an interesting choreography on music.
You mentioned you're working on Carlo at the moment.
Yes.
So tell us about your work that you're doing.
So I remember in 2016, I was invited by English National Ballet to make 45 minutes of Frida Kahlo, which I had called at the time Broken Wings. And 10 days before the premiere, we had our first tech rehearsal on stage. And I had an intuition. I was like, I think this should be a full length. So I went to see Tamara Rojo 10 days before the premiere. Like, you know, she gets born, accident, she dies. I mean, there's no time to really come, really deep into who she is, because I want to say everything and I can't say everything, and then, you know, I do want to have an ending. So, you know, she said, okay, I'll take that idea, let me tell you later. And then, you know, I found out that they were not interested in a full length because they had too many already other plans organized with other choreographers. I said, okay. And then, you know, a year ago, the Dutch National Ballet, no, it was 2 years ago, I made a piece for them for 32 dances, and it was a huge success. And the director said, well, I'm still looking for a new narrative, but not completely new, something, you know, so we're talking about Streetcar, the possibility of that. And then he said, but what do you want to do? And I said, well, my dream is to do a full length of Broken Wings. And so he said, well, let's do your dream. So here we are, almost 2020, and the dream is finally coming through from 2006. So in 4 years' time, I just, you know, put it out there in the universe, and it's finally coming to me. And, you know, it's so nice to be able to expand some of the scenes. So we have the same sets. Instead of 1 cube, it's going to be 2 cubes. We have the same costumes, but we are, you know, pimping them up, and we have a little bit more characters. And we had 4, you know, skeletons. We're going to have 16 skeletons. You know, the deer character of the deer that was, you know, only came at the very end. For me, now the deer really represent her solitude whenever she's alone and stuck at home in her bed. So the deer will come already from the very beginning of the piece. So all of this, I could, you know, meditate on all these aspects. And it's gonna come, 6th of February, that's the big date where we're revealing the Frida piece in Amsterdam.
Honestly, the piece is so beautiful. I am just so excited to hear that it's going to be a full-length ballet. But it must be quite difficult actually taking a 45-minute piece and turning it into a full length. What were the challenges for you?
No, it's not that difficult, because you know already what works, what doesn't work, where I was frustrated of feeling that it was going so fast, but you have to take it all apart. You can't say, well, that was a 45, the finale we'll put there, and then we'll put something as a second act. Every scene has to be reweighed, you know, rethought, and you have to think: was the length? So that's one thing. Is the length of each scene the right value for this full length? And then the new scenes, because you know it's not going to be a biography. It is a portrait about a woman who endured quite a few tragic events in her life, and so I'm taking those tragic events, and then through those events we land in her paintings, because she always said that she painted her life. So yeah, we reworked it, and you know, I can't wait to see it, and you know, I'm happy that some of the scenes will get more time. And you know, I'm happy that the role of Diego Rivera will get more space. I'm happy that I can show that she was as promiscuous as her husband, because now she was the victim. The lady, 1 year after she got married, there's already a letter exchange between her and Nicholas Murray, with whom she had a 10-year relationship. So, you know, it's I feel that it will be more honest to who she was. And, you know, as a Colombian descent woman, I'm so happy to bring some of my Latin American background into, you know, a country like Holland.
The piece it is like a painting, and the sets and the costumes are they were so unexpected, you know, quite groundbreaking. And as you say, it was a few years ago now, but still the work is so incredible and visually just so stunning as well. And it's where did you come up with this? It's like almost like her paintings have been, you know, pulled apart and put back together, and there's transitions and color, and it's so beautiful. So
I looked at her painting, because, you know, you're making a portrait of a woman, and you can, you know, my set designer said, shall we use, you know, a video? I'm like, no, that's not Frida. It's just, it's so much, you know, the brush and so my dream was to introduce Mexicanismo and the painting style to an audience that would know it. And so that when you look at the ballet and then you see a painting, like, oh, there's some similarities. So it's very two-dimensional. And I also said to my dancers, don't expect to, go like, all these quirky movements, and it's all going to be very straight to the audience, because she also did a lot of portraits, looking and glancing at herself and glancing at the audience. So everything is very straight. And then the colors. I mean, in Mexico, when you go to the Casa Azul, that blue, that Eve Klein blue, is like, really? Did you paint your house? Yes, she did. And there was, so the greenery and that little a pyramid with all the pre-Columbian art, and indeed there was a deer and she had monkeys, and so it's all there, it's all real. And she did use the fact of her, her fighting for the nationalism of the wanting the Mexican identity back. That was the motive for her also to dress like a Mexican woman, the Tijuana dress. When she arrived in America, she was sort of a weirdo, but they kind of liked it. It was like artistic, like, whoa, very avant-garde. And I wanted that to be reflected in the piece in a very simplistic way, that those paintings look like what they say is not that simplistic. And so it was trying to find that balance between, these two layers. And the idea of the black cube, it was very simple. It actually happened on the first scene that I was writing. I thought, oh my, how do you portray a woman that was most of the time, bedridden or in a wheelchair, and it's a dance performance? How do you do that? So very quickly, like 15 seconds later, I need a stand-up bed. So I called my set designer. I said, I need a cube. She was like, what do you mean? Well, the bed has to stand, so I want 2 doors that open, and I want a bed there. And so, then she was like, oh, well, maybe every side could open. And that's how we, found the idea of that Frida Kahlo would get born out of a black cube, and that when you spin the wheel, or you spin the cube, every time you have a different moment in her life. So, yeah, it's finding a translation that takes more time than actually choreographing the steps. And
Well, we learned so much about her through the work, but what did you learn about yourself in creating this work? Did you discover anything yourself?
Oh, I always say that I've been now dedicating my 16 years of my life as a professional choreographer, although I choreograph since I'm 11 years old. And after 16 years, I think that I know how a process is going to go, and every time it's a surprise, because there's always something that doesn't go as planned. And it is very unfortunate that you learn the most things when things don't go as planned. What did I learn? I learned that I love surrealism. I learned that I love humor, and I was very fortunate that Frida Kahlo also loved humor, and I thought that that would be a nice juxtaposition of her, traumatic moments and dramatic moments, with, the skeletons bringing up a little bit of humor to the storytelling, and again, for the pace and the breathing of the work, it fits really well. What did I learn? I don't think that I've learned it, but I still like, telling stories, although it's very difficult. And I love colors on stage, and I know that sometimes that's not hip and trendy to have such a colorful piece. But, like I said, from the very first piece that I made, and that I was very embarrassed that wasn't hip and trendy, I guess that's my calling. I'm never going to be that, and it's fine. And I like the fact that I feel released from the pressure of trying to be trendy. I'm not going to even try there. And it's nice to have that response of, audience member thinking, oh wow, we were not expecting that. I'm like, yeah, because I didn't follow the trend. So I'm going to keep doing that. I'm going to keep telling the young choreographers to do that.
Well, it certainly leads to great surprises when you go see your work, which I absolutely love, because you don't really ever know what you're about to see, which is super exciting, actually. But over the 16 years, what has been some of the the greatest challenges that you have faced, and how have you overcome those, do you think?
I think with each piece there are great challenges. As a choreographer, when you're young, you start at a young age, 30 years old for me, where I really had to learn how to manage a rehearsal and how to deal with groups and the group psychology, the psychology of a dancer. How do you approach them? You don't come at the bulldozer, bam, into them, because that doesn't work. So I had to learn by making, unfortunately, mistakes, and I think that I found a right balance between being very exigent and demanding, but using humor and the joy of being in a studio to approach my dancers. So that has been a challenge.
Frida Kahlo is obviously your next big piece that's coming out. What's after Frida?
What's after Frida? Is there a life after Frida? Well, I'm preparing to reset Vendetta on Tulsa Ballet. That is a narrative that I wrote myself based on The Godfather for Les Grands Ballets Canadiens a year and a half ago. And as I said, I want new roles for women. I want a new perspective on women. And so in my story, the Godfather has 4 children, 3 sons and a daughter, and it's the 50s and the daughter is getting married and all that. But then when he dies, he chooses his daughter to follow him as the next Godfather. So, love the story. I want to share it with as many people as possible, and so it's going to be reprised by the Tulsa Ballet this season. So that's right after I finish Premier Dresses out of Frida, and here I go by plane to Tulsa. Then I am preparing Evita for Ballet Hispanico, which is going to be next season. I am reworking my Dangerous Liaison for Royal New Zealand Ballet. That's for the summer. It's something that I made 3-4 years ago, and it was quite short and compact, and I want, next to the main story, I want also a bit like Downton Abbey, Dangerous Liaison for the servants. So I'm looking forward to do that, also to discover a new culture, and New Zealand is very far away. What else? Yeah, many other things. Also things I'm not allowed to talk about yet because contracts haven't really been signed. But yeah.
You produce so much work. How do you fit it all in? I was literally counting up the work and dividing it by your 16-year career, and I was quite astounded by how much work you do every single year.
Yeah. Since I was a kid, I guess I inherited the engineer mind of my father to be very organized and to see schemes and be mathematical about some things in my life. So it starts by just answering emails very simply, and being disciplined, because of course sometimes I have a free week, but I'm not entirely free. I always have to research or find music, and then once I'm in the studio, I try to be at one place and enjoy that moment with the dancers. And I'm blessed with a very good health and a lot of energy, and I'm pretty much every day I'm good humored, so I'm always in the mood to have a good day, although not every day goes as well as I would want to. And I know that one day that energy will fade. That's the nature, and that I will have to give my place, or that I would love to find platforms for younger choreographers. But for now, it's being organized and disciplined that makes it happen, that I can do that much work.
And you mentioned young choreographers, and this is my final question, I promise. What advice would you give to young choreographers, particularly young female choreographers, who are looking at your career and thinking, I would love to follow in your footsteps?
Never follow someone in their footsteps. I believe, and that's not just for female choreographers, that every choreographer, if it's really your passion, that you want to say something through the art form of dance, and sometimes you don't succeed, it's not because you're not good enough, maybe you're not prepared yet, it's to find your platform. And so it's the easiest is to start where you were a dancer, but sometimes that company is too big or too contemporary or too classical, and your style doesn't fit the vision of the director. So I would say don't despair, but go out in the world and find where they're going to appreciate your work. So that's one. The other one is that you have to save money. You have to budget your freedom. So 2 years before I quit dancing, I knew that it was coming up. I could feel that I was not going to be happy any longer in the frame of an institution, of a ballet company. And so I saved a lot of money, and I lived in a squad for 11 euros a month, and I saved a lot of money so that I could be free of being unsuccessful. Because it sounds weird, but nobody is waiting for you and nobody is going to invite you. I mean, I stopped dancing and I had 2 invitations. One was the Scapino Ballet and Dutch National Ballet in one season. So that was a great season. And then the season after wasn't so great because nobody really knew me. And, I couldn't go back to Dutch National Ballet and Scapino Ballet. So I, wanted always to have money so that I could be without a job for 6 months. And then that became, money to be without a job for 1 year because, may God forbid, you get injured or, things get cancelled, which happened to me. I had once in my 3rd year as a choreographer, 3 projects got either cancelled or postponed. And there I was doing nothing and not earning any money. But, if you get a job on the side as a teacher, then you can't get out of it so easily and freely when that other job comes in. So, yeah, my next advice is save money, budget your freedom. And then, the third one is what I always say, don't try to be trendy. Try to be as honest as possible. And even though if you think, well, if I'm me, it's not interesting enough maybe for an audience, I think the more personal you become, the more universal the message gets across. And I think that as an audience, you can feel if someone was true to what they wanted to do or someone was trying to be interesting. And you always will have people that don't like your work. That's fine. It's you can't please everyone, and you're definitely never pleasing yourself because you always want to do a better piece. I always say that I'm practicing for that one masterpiece that I'll do one day. So every piece is flawed, and it's sad, but at the same time it gives me energy and it gives me a reason to do another piece because I got to practice, because it's not good enough yet, and one day it will be. So the hope that one day I'll make that amazing piece makes me stand up every day and practice and try over and over again and fail and try again. So yeah, don't despair. It's about I think every career is about hard work, belief, and of course talent. And it's a craft, so you got to practice your craftsmanship. And some choreographers are lucky to be very good at the age of 25, others become very good at the age of 40, and it doesn't mean that you have less to say than the young talented choreographer. So that was not really aimed to women in general, but I don't feel like I'm a choreographer, that my gender is who I am as a choreographer. It doesn't define me. So it's for all the choreographers out there.
Thank you so much, Annabelle.
Thank you for having me.
And for all of our wonderful listeners who are in Amsterdam or in the US, look out for the new work coming, the full-length ballet of the Frida Kahlo, and many other pieces of Annabelle's work, which you'll be able to see wherever you are, because we have an audience all around the world and her work is constantly everywhere. She's mentioned so many wonderful countries. So check out her website, stay up to date, and on Instagram.
Yes, you can follow me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Don't forget to subscribe. We've got some incredible interviews coming up with principal ballerinas and renowned choreographers. We love dance and ballet, and we hope you'll love us. Join us on Facebook and Twitter.